We're walking. And to the right of me, I heard a big snap. And out of nowhere, and still, like, there's nothing making a noise, nothing. And then I heard a twig snap. And I grabbed him. I said, "Did you hear that?" He said, "Yes, just keep walking." He's like, "It's probably just a deer or something." So as we're walking, and this was so terrifying to me, this is probably one of my most terrifying encounters because, I mean, if it wanted us, it could have got us that night. Like, I mean, clearly. I mean, we both could have been dead. And so we're walking out, and every probably 10 yards we walked, it was snapping into it. And it wasn't just like, you step, like you're walking and you step on a twig, like a tiny twig. It makes, a little snap. But no, this was like snapping, like it was snapping branches. And it was getting louder. And so we come up the road, and he stopped. And he turned, it was like kind of like a spotlight, kind of like a handheld one. And he started circling around, just like shining this light. And he was trying not to seem scared, but he knew that I was scared, and I knew he was scared. Like, we were both scared out of our minds. And he's shining everywhere, and we caught, like, eye shine. And it was probably, like, 8 feet off the ground. And I was like, holy crap. I was like, "Did you see the eye shine?" He was like, "Yeah, I just wanted to raccoon in the tree." I was like, "That ain't no raccoon." I said, "I've seen raccoons, like, in trees. That's no raccoon." And he said, he handed me the gun, and because he said I was better shot than him. I'm sorry, it was funny, but it was so terrifying. He handed me the gun, and he took the backpack. He said, "Listen," he's like, "we're gonna get up this hill right here, and we're gonna try to act like we're not scared, but I know you're scared. I'm scared too." And he said, "We're not gonna act like we're scared. We're just gonna just beeline it up this hill. But we're not going to run, and whatever's out there that's following us." It was paralleling us through the woods, and he thought it was a bear. He said, "Whatever's paralleling us, I don't know if they ate something, but I ain't going to be no different. So I want you to go in front of me, and I'm going to be behind you shining. I'm going to walk." And it was like this humongous hill. Like, I was dreading, like, I remember walking in dreading that I was going to have to walk up that hill, like, to get back to the truck. And the hill wasn't even, we were still probably 10 minutes from the truck, walking. And his buddy had came too, but he also parked up there with us, and he went like on the opposite ridge from us. So, I mean, if something would have happened to us, he would not have heard anything. I mean, he may have like me or something. So I started praying, like I seriously did. I started praying in my mind. And we're walking up, and you could, I mean, it's probably like 10 foot from us, like snapping twigs. And now we can hear it walking. At first we could only hear the twigs snapping, and then we could hear it walking. It was bipedal, like it was someone walking beside us, like 10 foot in the tree line. And I was on the verge of crying. I was so scared. And I remember him saying, "Listen, I know we're just dating, but you're an awesome girl. And if something happens to me, please just tell my parents that I love them." And I was like, "What? You're scared." Like, you scared me more than almost in that, because I was like, "Oh my God," I was like, "You ain't going nowhere. You leave me out here by myself." And so I remember he was sweating so bad that I couldn't hardly hold his hand because his hands were sweating so bad because he was so scared. And I just started praying, and then I started praying out loud. Like, I just started calling on the name of Jesus. And I know we don't do that, around people, but I was so scared, and that's all I could do. So I started calling on the name of Jesus, like, out loud. And then I started, like, yelling. Like, I just started yelling in the name of Jesus. And finally, we seen the truck. And as soon as we seen the truck, we just took off running. Because up until we seen the truck, we were walking. Because we didn't want it to think that we were scared, even though it knew we were scared. It was scared the crap out of us on purpose. So we took off running as soon as we seen the truck. He slung his gun, everything, backpack the open truck. He slung the doors open. I got to the back. He got up there because we had something in the front seat. And then he jumped into the front seat. And then he starts trying to call his friend. He was like, and he answered, he was like, "Men, where are you?" He's like, I'm almost to the truck. He's like, I just saw y'all get in. He was like, dude, you need to run. Like, you need to get in the truck and run now. And so he jumped in his truck and he was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He was like, nothing, but I'm backing up. You better get your truck in a hurry because we're getting out of here. And we did. Like, it was so funny too. His tires were my tires were sliding everywhere. I thought we were going to get stuck, but I was so scared. That was one of the most terrifying walks of my entire life. It was so scary. I'm like trembling on my phone. It was so scary. I mean, it's kind of funny looking back now, you know. But I know that God was with us because if that thing wanted us, it would have took us. No one would have heard. I mean, there would have been nothing. Like, if it wanted us that day, I believe it was just trying to scare us off. But I remember, like, looking at it now, I should have known because if I had known what I knew now, I would know right away that, I mean, when there's deer and stuff, but there was no deer. Like, nothing was coming through there. There was no rodents, nothing. We didn't hear anything. But yeah, that was in my town. And then I will say too, looking back, so where I grew up, the land that my grandpa bought 13 acres, they used to call it the bride. And some people that my dad knew that lived in that town.
It's
I thought that was kind of crazy.
13, 16.
And cool too, so I know I'm not crazy.
No, I don't.
And then another guy who lived right down the road from us, well, not from us, but from the area where I grew up, and I talk to him to this day. He had chicken houses where he's building his new house on this land, and this is a year and a half ago. He was walking in one of the chicken houses. I guess he was storing like his lumber in there to build his house. And he looked out the window of the chicken house, and he said, plain as day, there was a white one with not a lot of hair. He said it did not have a lot of hair, but its hair was white. And he was sitting on the ground with his back propped up to an oak tree. And he said his mouth flung open. He was like, he could not believe what he was looking at, but he was still walking. But he wasn't watching where he was walking, and he tripped and like knocked over some stuff.
This one has not changed.
And he said that thing, he called them a thing, but he said that thing jumped up and took off running. He said that thing ran so fast. I mean, it was insane how fast it ran. And that
so
was
cold?
It's like a mile down the road from where I grew up.
So cold.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us
saw
know.
this
Thanks
TikTok
for
of
listening.
this
Have a great night.
person filming this woman filling up her truck or SUV, and some of the guys is pouring it.
What the hell?
It's like, do you not hear that?
Like,
You're on the
really?
gas splashing the ground right there.
That's how some people
So
are.
they probably paid way too much more than what they needed.
Probably,
Down the road, they're probably like, why is it almost empty?
favorite brand products exclusively at Smith's called the Great Taste You'll Celebrate. That's why over 40 million people choose Kroger brand products, making it
one of the scariest events of my life. It happened in roughly July of 2021 in South Central Georgia, on the place that I've lived for my entire life, on about 120 acres.
Let's do this.
It goes back farther than that, though, to when I was a kid. As a kid, when I was playing in the yard or riding four-wheelers or anything, I would always have rocks knocking. I'd hear them up in the woods when I was in our yard. I would always notice trees fell down on a particular trail that we used to ride on, and they'd always start falling in a certain spot, and there'd always be trees falling there. Kids not knowing any better, we would always move them and just keep going. Looking back now, I wish we hadn't. We would always be sitting in our yard, hanging out, doing what kids do, and we'd always have a feeling of being watched. So we'd go around the house looking in windows, seeing if our parents were looking at us, or we never thought there was something in the woods looking at us. We were just kids. We didn't know any better. Well, as I got older and I continued to hear knocking in the woods and something that sounded like people talking, I always just assumed it was our neighbors. But our neighbors through the woods were 1,000 yards away. But I didn't know any better. One time I was sitting in my deer stand in the bottom of a holler, and I heard someone talking. Sounded like they were within 50 feet of me. So I grabbed my phone and texted my dad, "Are you behind me? Are you around me?" And he just texted back no with a question mark. So I continued to sit there, and I realized whatever was talking was circling around me. I thought it was one of our neighbors who was trespassing, or one of their kids was looking to hunt on our property. So I just stood up in the deer stand, started shouting, fired off a round. Sat back down, went back to, I think I was reading a book at the time. A few minutes later, I heard it walking around a little bit closer. And whatever it was that day circled me until the sun went down. And I wasn't old enough to leave the deer stand by myself. So that night, my dad came and got me. I'll never forget the feeling of seeing that flashlight from bebopping through the woods, because something was surrounding me on 2 feet, and I thought I had an idea of what it was. And if I would have seen anything, I would have been right at eye level with him and paralyzed by fear. The same year, I believe, that the circling happened, we had a dead deer probably 15 feet from our front porch in our yard. Something had wrung this deer's neck. It was a pretty big buck, probably 150, 175 pounds. Something just turned his head around, and he was laying in our front yard. We knew no one around us that was hunting besides us. We had a gate on our property, so no one could get back there to us. My dad always played it off like he wasn't worried about it. It was just one of those things that happened.
Truckers confused.
But I always had my concerns about what it could have been. Could it have been the thing that was throwing rocks at me and knocking and talking while I was sitting in a deer stand? Well, fast forward a few years later to this summer. I'm home. My roommate comes home with me to work a summer job. And he always believed that there was something out there, but he didn't know what. And I told him about some of my experiences, and he decided that, hey, I want to go and see what you got. I want to see this experience that you're having. So one of the first weekends he's home with me, I take him to where my deer stand used to be. We walk down towards the holler, and I'm just giving him instructions, directions of where things are, and we continue to walk the holler. As we continue to walk the holler, I tell him about a deer stand that my dad built when I was 8 or 9. He and I built it into a tree. And if you've hunted a lot in your life, you know you don't build a deer stand in a tree unless you plan on hunting that spot for a long time. My dad hunted that stand one time and never went back. I was never allowed to go back down there after that. I was never allowed to ride a four-wheeler back there. Being back there was off limits completely to me as a kid. I always thought that's where, I guess, Bigfoot lived to me. I never had any confirmation. I just thought somewhere, and this is logically where he would be at. But my dad would never talk about it. I would mention it to him, and he would kind of laugh it off. Like, oh yeah, there's just nothing back there. There's a deer back there. Any good hunter knows that you don't build a deer stand in a tree unless you've seen deer. And he killed deer back there the year before. So I know there were deer back there. But I also know what else is back there now. So as my roommate and I are walking through this holler, we just get an eerie feeling of being watched. And we're not sure if it's us or something seeing us, what it could have been. Go out and listen every few steps, and my roommate whoops one time. And about 50 yards in front of us, we got a responsive whoop back. He didn't hear it, but I did, so we keep walking very slowly, very quietly. Not trying to creep up on anything, because you know just as well as I do, you're not going to creep up on this thing, and by no means will we hunting it. We walk probably 20 feet, and I'm looking around, and so is he, because we don't want to be stalked, I guess would be the word. You know, if you know I'm here, I'd like to know you're here too. So at about 3 o'clock, we see a jet black figure that's about 4 to 6 feet tall. He's leaning out around the tree, peering at us, so you can only really see a shoulder and the head. He's probably 50 to 60 feet away from us. And we sit there and stare at him for what feels like forever, but it was only probably 20 seconds at the most. Couldn't really make out a lot of features because he was underneath the cover of all the trees. I can just tell you he was jet black. We continue walking and go about 5 or 10 more feet and look back where we were. And at whatever this was, it was gone. My roommate looked at each other and we know what we just saw. We take a few more steps, and where this thing was would be now at about our 4 or 5 o'clock. So at our 10 o'clock, we hear something start banging on what sounds like a 55-gallon drum or a piece of sheet metal with its fist, and it really sounds like an ape going ballistic.
Every journey starts with a dream, and all dreams come with a price. Saving isn't a hill climb, but with goals, determination, and the right financial partner, there's no dream you can't reach. No peak is too high. So what are you saving for? Share your dream with us for a chance to win $1,000. Start saving with Bank of Utah today.
Visit bankofutah.com to enter. The purchase necessary. Eligibility restrictions apply. See website for additional details. Member FDIC. It is Ryan, also reflected in activated social expense rates and checkpointsc.com. I look over the proceedings stand next to me. They're also playing Check Casino. Please note that the company Check Casinos hold hundreds of casinos games and you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now. Shop.casino.com to get your free offer. It's shop.casino.com.
Every journey starts with a dream, and all dreams come with a price. Saving isn't a hill climb, but with goals, determination, and the right financial partner, there's no dream you can't reach. No peak is too high. So what are you saving for? Share your dream with us for a chance to win $1,000. Start saving with Bank of Utah today.
Visit bankofutah.com to enter. The purchase necessary. Eligibility restrictions apply. See website for additional details. Member FDIC.
And all of a sudden, my blood runs cold. I know what's happening. We draw. I carry a 9. He carries a 45. We drew out of fear, not out of wanting to harm these creatures, because we think we got between a juvenile and mother, and getting in between a juvenile and mother with any species is going to get you killed, and we know that. So as this creature is screaming and banging, we get back to back, and we know immediately we got to get out of here. We've entered unwanted territory. She thinks that was her baby looking at her, and it was us. Mom is not happy with us. So as we start to make our way up the hill together, we hear chatter. It sounds like 3, maybe 4 other creatures chattering, which would be, if the banging is coming from our 10 o'clock, from roughly our between 12 and 2 o'clock, with another creature at our 4 to 5 o'clock. So we head out the best way we know how, which is at roughly 3 o'clock, because going back down into the holler is just going to put us into a pinching situation that's not good for us. So as we start to head up this hill, and we hear laughing and chattering, I'm leading us out because I know where I am and it's new to the area. I look up and I see this deer stand that my dad and I built 10 years ago. I finally understood why I was never allowed to go back there. I genuinely feared for my life at that moment and knew nothing else but don't run, be safe, and get out. We were following probably 400 yards all the way out, straight uphill, by at least 2 of these creatures. It was one of the scariest experiences of my life. We shocking events happening. I blacked out to the creature screaming because I heard the talking and laughing. My roommate heard the creature banging and screaming and did not hear the talking. So we both heard different things, but we were 5 feet apart. And we were focused on getting out of there. We got home, collected our thoughts, changed our pants basically, and kind of tried to discuss what just happened. I mean, we weren't sure, but we pretty much knew what just happened. And decided we're not going to go back there. So as we continue on throughout the few weeks that we're still at home for summer break, we would always go outside and feel the presence of being watched. We knew we upset them because we think we walked into their house unexpectedly somehow. So as we were being watched at my house, we would be looking in the woods at all times, trying to put eyes on this thing. You know, just trying to be as vigilant as possible. There are a few instances that we had where we would see a silhouette moving. We would see a black spot away, and then there's sun shining through the trees again there. So we knew we were being watched. There wasn't a lot of fear because you're at home. There's not a lot of fear when you're in your own yard mostly, but there was still fear there. One of the biggest, most important nights that I can recall is we're outside with my parents and some of their friends, and we are about at dusk. There's just enough tree light coming through the trees that you can see through the trees, but it's not coming over the trees. We're just hanging out outside, and my roommate tapped me, and I just heard 2 knocks from down there. And I heard it too, but I wasn't going to say anything. So we're kind of looking around, trying to figure out, you know, if we're still being watched or what 2 knocks down there means. Then we see an arm swing, walking down the hill towards where these knocks came from.
That's why it's so bright.
We think it was a shift change. A few minutes later, we go to look at the same general area where we saw the arm swing. And it's dark now, so I pull out a flashlight. And it's a pretty strong wind. It'll go 100 yards. And we're looking maybe 50 feet in front of us, right beside the tree line, about 5 or 10 feet. And we see this black leg. It's got to be his leg, because it's at our eye level, or to the ground level in the woods. And when I tell you this leg was probably the size of a dinner plate on the ground, I'm not exaggerating. So I hold the light on the leg. I'm frozen. Because I know what this is. I know what he's here for. He's not here to hurt us. He's just here to make sure that we don't go back in there. So I try shining the light, trying to look, see if I can get more bodily features, but he's in blinds, so you can't see anything, but I'm sure he can see us very well. We decided it's time to go in the house, to go in and call it a night. And the next day, we decided we wanted to recreate. I go up there, I'm 6'4", 150 pounds. I was not near as big as this son was, so I send my roommate up there. He's probably 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's a semi-pro bodybuilder, so he's a big guy. He's a big guy, and I send him up there, and I'm telling you, the size of this thing's leg was uncomparable to a human being. The next instance I had was, I was out on the tractor one day clearing some fields up in the back of our property. Not really near where the big instance really happened. I'm kind of just riding through this field that's already kind of low, and I see a fawn, maybe a few weeks old, the size of a small dog. And this thing was just ripped in half. It looks like something picked this thing up and pulled the front half away from the back half and just pulled it apart and left it there in the middle of the road for someone to see. And we took that as a sign. So we don't go back there anymore either. Then, probably a week or so later, I was fixing up a camper at my grandparents' house, which is on the same piece of property, probably 100 yards away from my house. We were out there working pretty late at night, probably for 7 or 8 days in a row. And on the last night we were out there, we stayed until probably 11:30 to 12 o'clock at night. And we kept noticing, watched, but it was kind of getting old, the fear of, what if we what's going to happen if we do something wrong here. So I get in my truck, I've got light bars all over it, and I turn every single one of them on and point it in the direction of what we're hearing. And just inside the tree line, maybe 15 feet, 20 feet, my roommate goes, there he is. So I rush up to where he is, and sure as the world, there is I would call him a ginger color, a brownish color, and he was every bit of 8.5 to 9 feet tall, just looking at me. I mean, we were making eye contact for I don't know how long. As soon as we made eye contact, I felt anger come over me. I mean, I was upset that, we were having to live in this fear of, we just kind of stared at each other for, there's acorns, but there's no rocks. And when you get hit by an acorn versus a rock, in camper, you can tell the difference. And I tell them, well, go sit on the porch, don't sit in a tin box containing yourself, be vigilant. Maybe we didn't make him too mad yesterday. Well, I get there, we go in the camper. Were there any rocks thrown? I got them.
I think 2 or 3 of the trees.
Yeah.
I think I heard 2 or 3 times on the trees when I was walking out the tree line. Because I wanted to go and check out where it was. And I had a rock thrown to a tree about 4 feet to my right. I was just said, hey, don't go in this tree line, otherwise it's going to be bad for you.
Yeah, I could hit this tree. I'm going to hit you if you come any closer. Yeah. But we had some rocks thrown at us once I got there. And that's when my roommate left and he went back home in North Carolina.